Hi, everyone. We'll give it a couple of minutes before we get started, but not too many. I'll give everyone about 1 minute to join. Okay, it is 11:31. I can be polite. I am Canadian, but I'm going to have to end the politeness there because Io and I have been preparing this webinar for a couple of weeks now, and every single time we have gone over the 30 minutes because this is a complex topic. There's just so much to say about it, so much data that we have, so many insights, a lot of stories as well to tell. And yeah, we just can't fit it into 30 minutes. So we're going to try our best so that we can leave some time for Q&A. But today we are going to talk about the invisible bill. So what AI is actually costing your organization. And this is based off of an ebook that we're working on, where we are looking at the AI spend in Europe for 2026. It's really, when Io and I were talking about this topic at the beginning, he said something really interesting. And it's that, AI isn't the future. So right now we have a lot of teams that are testing, a lot of POCs going on. And we kind of assume that, yes, AI is part of our lives, but it's really going to be part of the foundations of our company in 2027, 2028. But the reality is that we are seeing the impact of it in our bill right now. So it's really interesting to have this discussion together so that we can start seeing where there are issues now and where we can, stop any wastage, and then also prepare for when those POCs start becoming a real part of our workflows and our everyday life. So let me just. So before I start, who are we to be up here talking to you guys today about this topic? I am here with Io. He is a procurement leader with over 15 years of experience, helping organizations strengthen visibility, governance, and control. So he is a senior IT procurement partner at Najar. He supports complex multi-entity environments in structuring procurement processes, embedding risk management practices, and also driving performance. On my end, I'm Liz. I have also about 15 years of experience in marketing and product from scale-ups to listed companies. I will admit, I am the face behind pricing and packaging of SaaS sometimes as a product marketer. So I will say it, I am part of the problem that we are going to see today. But on the flip side, I am also the director of content at Najar. And my team are behind our SaaS and AI trends reports that are published annually and where the data is that we have today. I promise you right now, there are no demos in this presentation. There is just data and tips that you can use without Najar. I will, however, take 2 seconds to talk about the company that Io and I work for before I stop talking about us altogether, because that is not the point of the webinar today. So at Najar, we help you level the playing field with your vendors so that you know as much as they do. And honestly, SaaS pricing and packaging, and again, I blame myself for this, sometimes it can be very unclear. It's very murky. You have to fill out a form to figure out how much things are going to cost you. The reality is that AI is making it much worse. And that's why we're here. We want to give companies back control over their stacks, their negotiations, and their margins. So we're helping companies like Backmarket, Tom Group, Boulanger, Etam, et cetera, get better commercial terms through platform, but also with a group of expert IT procurement partners like Io, who's here. And on average, our customers are seeing about 25% savings on their SaaS and about 300 hours back to work on other things that are not negotiating and managing renewals, etc. So Io and his team, Najar's platform, and this webinar are backed by about 6 billion in European spend data. So we really have a privilege here of real insights into how vendors work with more than 250 European companies. So I'm really excited to share with you guys the work that we've done on this and the data that we've been able to compile from this, that I think is a really great representation of AI usage, but also of where we're seeing issues. And for everyone to know that we are facing a lot of these same issues. So I will let Io take it away to cover a little bit of what we're going to talk about today in the presentation.
Thank you so much, Liz. I think thank you for that introduction as well. And I would say what we have to do here is magic. Okay. So in the next 30 minutes, we're going to deep dive into the 3 cost problems we're seeing across AI spend. Okay. Firstly, and give you insights on how to handle these problems. And I know we have a diverse audience today, so I'll put it, I'll try to ensure that every audience that we have here at least see the problem from their lenses. I know if you're finance, you're seeing AI spend grow. If you're in IT, you're seeing adoption problems and how it's growing within your team. And then I would say if you're part of procurement, you're seeing that renewals and negotiations are getting complicated every quarter or every month when you have to deal with them. In all honesty, these are 3 different views, but they're all the same problem. And that's where we're going to try to unpack them today. Okay, so what we've done with Liz is we've created 3 different pillars that we want to guide this whole webinar. The first pillar is the AI tax. This covers pure AI tools, as well as aggregators and AI-enabled SaaS platforms. We'll look at how the spend shows up across these 3 different categories. The second pillar we want to discuss is the AI token tax. This is where infrastructure costs get passed through invisibly, directly to your bottom line. And the final is the AI feature overlap, where you might be paying twice for the same capability across different tools on your stack.
Perfect. And so just to give you guys an idea of the methodology behind this, this is, as I mentioned before, based on our customer data set. So it's about 250 active European companies that we've pulled this data from. I know we have customers in the room today. Do not worry, this is 100% fully anonymized before we did the analysis and report. So we will not be naming names today or other days. And interestingly enough, too, what's great is that this is cross-industry. So again, we can all be sharing the same pains, but this is really looking at problems across retail, tech, finance, consulting, real estate, and more. So lots of different industries in this report. Perfect. So if we want to put a number to the invisible bill, this is a really great one to do because we're seeing huge progression over the last 4 years. So I'm sure every one of you, and I include myself in this, leaders, individual contributors, is seeing growth in AI usage across their organization. When we look at the cost of tools that have AI features baked in across the contracts that we have at Najar, we are seeing a 55% increase over the past 4 years. And what's striking about it is that, yes, of course, SaaS, there's an increase every year, but that's usually pegged closer to inflation. So normally we're going to see a 3 or 4% increase, whereas here we're seeing 55% over 4 years. And if I just compare 2025 to 2026, it's already a 16% jump on average in the increase in SaaS pricing that has AI features. So it tells us that vendors are adding AI features and passing that cost on to consumers or customers, whether they want it or not. And that's what we're going to look at as well. But what's really interesting, and it's the truly invisible part of the bill too, is that we're seeing that 93% of pure play AI spend has no formal contract behind it. And what we see time and time again with our clients is that they're buying AI at the individual level. So lower tiers, lower licenses, premium or freemium licenses, or on a credit card. So that's a Claude license, a ChatGPT license, bought as a non-contracted pay-as-you-go rate, rather than a negotiated pro or enterprise tier. So what that ultimately means for you guys is that no contract means no negotiated discount and no visibility for finance teams. So it's really important that you guys start looking at those numbers very closely. We're also seeing companies paying twice, both for features, which we'll dig into, but also across AI models. So what was really interesting here is that 43% of the data set are paying both for an aggregator, so a platform that's going to bring together multiple AI models, so for example, Dust, on top of separate licenses for both Anthropic and OpenAI. So right now, there's a real consolidation and visibility problem across the board, whether we're talking about price increases or usage. And the question remains, I talked about this at the very beginning, 2025, 2026 were really these moments of testing, of POC, of seeing what the use cases are for AI. But we really have to think, 2027 is around the corner. And so when we've reviewed all those POCs and it's time to commit, what are you going to actually sign? I don't know, Io, if there's any numbers here that are particularly striking for you that you want to comment on.
I think all of it is striking, especially looking at the growth from increases between 2022 and 2026. 55%, I think that's enough for everybody to take a pause. And again, it's not because it's not striking just because the numbers show exactly what we feel on the field. Typically on our side, we've been seeing these movements, these jumps. However, putting a number behind it is, it's quite interesting. There's something we like to say on Najar's side. Again, this is what we think. You cannot manage costs, negotiate a contract that you have no visibility over. So that means, firstly, you need to be able to see it before you can manage it.
Yeah, perfect. And I mean, you also need to be able to understand it. And this is another area where we are seeing a lot of confusion as well. It's in terms of billing. On top of the price increases themselves, we're seeing lots of different ways of purchasing AI and paying for it. And that's not just an annual bill like SaaS used to be. There are just so many different pricing and packaging formats. Again, as a product marketer, I will take the blame here. This is people like me. We're trying to figure out the perceived value of AI. We're also trying to help, our companies compensate for AI costs that are changing very quickly. And naturally, unfortunately, part of that cost gets passed on to customers, to consumers at the end of the day. So we're seeing a handful of billing shifts that, in effect, help hide the real cost of AI renewals. So I'm going to walk through 5 that we're seeing regularly and keeping the eye on. The first one is outcome-based billing, which is quite interesting. So you're paying per AI success. A good example of that is paying per resolved ticket or closed support conversation. But the catch here is that it's the vendor who decides what success looks like, right? So if I'm going to name some names, we've got Intercom that's charging about $1, €1 per resolved conversation. And that's counted at the moment that either the user has confirmed they're satisfied or the user goes inactive. So I think that's pretty helpful on the vendor side to be able to measure like that. And for Zendesk, we're seeing about €1.50 for automated resolutions when there's additional committed volume. But also there's a different price if you want to pay as you go, and that's around €2. So in every case, the vendor controls both the definition and the count. And the buyer has no audit right either way, and the rate isn't always locked in at signing. So it's something you really need to be careful with. The second type of billing we're seeing is hybrid seat and token metering. So for those of us that are old enough to remember enterprise pricing and how complicated it used to be and sometimes still is, we're back to that. So we're back at, combining multiple lines in terms of pricing. And so for this type of pricing, we've got fixed seats, we've got consumption, and we've got a platform fee. Cursor is a really good example of that. So you've got a fixed per seat fee, you've got a token consumption on top of that, and a platform surcharge with a quarterly true up. So this return to kind of old school pricing, I really think is a sign of how much the industry is still figuring it out and how much they can charge customers and how much value they see from it. The third one is capacity commitment. So where there's an additional layer of credits that get billed on top. So it's opening up a new unbudgeted consumption stream on top of what you've predicted in your budget. So that's something to look out for. And then credit and token metering. So that's when you have prepaid credits, but they can expire. Typically, they'll last for a month, and then there's no rollover, very conveniently for them and conveniently for you. So this is one to watch closely because you need to be able to monitor usage efficiently and make sure you're actually using up what you've paid for. And fifth is infrastructure billing. So we're talking mainly for technical teams. So you're going to be billed per event, per log line, per message. So looking at all of this, it's confusing for me. I imagine it is for you too, because how do you predict what your bill is going to look like, what your budget's going to look like if it can constantly change? And if it's confusing for us, and for those of you that are in procurement or finance here today, how is it also confusing for HR, for your tech teams, for marketing departments, for your budget holders, who at the end of the day are sometimes making these purchases themselves without going through procurement? So they're going to be as confused, and they're not going to know where to start handling these negotiations and that visibility. I don't know, Io, if you can speak a little bit to the confusion on this.
Yeah, speaking about confusion, again, I think we're going to get a bit more confused, especially I think on the infra bill side, which is going to be ridiculous. I think from last year, so many organizations have been configuring different agents to query their data from GCP, creating amazing things with what the agents can query and all of that interesting stuff. Now we've got an announcement from Google to say from October 1st, that is going to be token based. Again, I'm not sure if anybody is prepared enough with historical data on how much token they've used over the last year. Again, we are really hoping that from our side, maybe this is a point where everybody sits back to know there's actually no free lunch. If you have tried these features freely before, there's actually going to be a cost attached to it. And now, if you ask me again, we need to start preparing in terms of historical data to know how that token has been used over the last year. How do you prepare it for this year, especially from the October 1st? One final thought from me on this, especially, I am hoping that what's it called? We are coming to a point where we can have a standardized knowledge on how the AI market is going to be in the future. I think, funny enough, I think most of the people online here today probably have seen Claude. I think Claude has come to stabilize the market. Possibly that's where the market is heading at. But yes, I'm hoping that we get to that point.
Yeah, perfect. And that's the thing, as you were saying, I was like, this is where it's at now. What is it going to be in 6 months? And so what you said about monitoring and understanding your past usage is so important, to be able to at least predict as much as possible your future usage. And if this changes every 6 months, or even if they've started inventing different billing techniques, it's going to be hard to keep up. But just in terms of finding your own invisible bill, IO, can you walk us through the 4 places that you really need to look to assess the impact of this on your margins?
Yes, happy to do that, Liz. Again, I think if you ask everybody, this sounds like the easiest thing to actually do. Everybody already has an idea, especially on these 4 pillars we're going to be speaking about today. It sounds easy to do, but then with my experience, I know nobody actually gets it done. I think for starters, the first step to managing your AI start spend is auditing your expenses. Again, it's funny to plug in AI tools here. I think there are so many AI tools that can help you audit expenses and save you time on auditing it. But that auditing has to be done. So you have to audit every credit card department by everybody is issued to know exactly what they're spending on. Okay. I would say second, again, this is something that typically is easy, sounds easy to do, which is monitoring your SSO login. This has to be done in collaboration with your IT manager, your CTO, or whoever handles the SSO on your side. There are different platforms that can give you logs and login data, like Microsoft Entra ID. I think Google does the same with their workspace as well. I think Najar also has SSO login, where you can see what platforms have been logged in. I think that's going to be a very good tool to actually help you give a view on what are the tools that people are buying within your organization, what are the AI tools, especially they're buying in the organization. I think the third pillar, which is quite interesting and it's like a mixed match for me. During the process of getting this research done, I know something popped up, which was we were querying to see exactly, how many AI tools are people buying. However, we noticed that when you search with the vendor names, it comes out lesser than when you search with the product name. So that tells me something clearly. You need to search for product names, not just vendor names. Okay. Searching for products gives like a better visibility on what is being bought. And then the final part here has to be rereading your recent contracts. I would say best thing to do is every contract signed from 2025 until now, either they're up to renewal or not, they have to be reread and reviewed. Practical real life case here. A client of mine came over to meet me and say, "Hey, Ayo, I'm being charged for a new AI feature. I tested the feature, I like it, and I want to keep it." And the first point was, "Can I see your current contract for that feature?" Reviewing the current contract, again, I saw that a line item in that current order form included AI. So he said AI feature. Very vague. But then that was the basis of our argument to say, okay, we paid already last year for this AI feature. You are introducing it in January of 2026. Why do I have to pay again for a feature already in my contract? Again, should I be asking for my money back? So does that mean I paid and I didn't get my money back? Or should you say, okay, I have the feature and get going? As you know, nobody likes to give their money back. So yes, the feature was enabled. And that tells me again that reading your contract saves you a lot of money, if you ask me.
Yep, absolutely. I love it. AI feature. So if I dig into the different types of taxes that we're seeing, let's have a look here. And we're going to focus on pure players, aggregators, and AI-enabled SaaS. So I'm going to start with pure play AI tools that are usually standalone AI-first products. So there's no legacy SaaS underneath. But that also means that there's no existing vendor relationship, no established contract, no renewal cycle to catch them at. And that's the important part, is that, these are coming in with no visibility. And so we are seeing these huge numbers here. This 93% of pure play AI with no formal contract that we saw earlier in the presentation is huge. And we are seeing that again, because employees are buying it directly on personal cards or department level, and there's no overarching body within a company to review the usage and the purchase. And the second is that API and token-based usage isn't tied to a user, so it's tied to consumption. And that means spend can double even without any increase in headcount, or teams can be buying extra credit packs when their allocation runs out, and you might not be able to see that. So interesting enough, the number's not up here, but on average, we're seeing about 5 pure play tools per organization across our data set. And across our customer base, we're seeing about 25 distinct pure play AI tools in usage. And that's also, goes back to what Ayo was saying about, you need to know the name of the tools. You also need to know the name of the vendors to be able to find it. And you will be surprised that often the vendor name and the product name are not at all related. So we often, default to thinking of ChatGPT, Claude, etc. But there's some that you just might not have heard of yet. The last number that we're seeing is that 90% of this shadow IT or shadow AI, if we want to say it that way, is ChatGPT, Cursor, and Claude. It's not really a surprise. We all know that this has become part of our everyday working lives. I don't know if there's anything in this that particularly surprises you from the numbers. Oh, I can't hear you, Io. I think you're on mute.
Oh, yes, sorry. I think the number everybody should take away today is the 93%, which is mind blowing if you ask me. But then tying it back to the earlier example I gave, if there's no contract for these purchases, you can't go back and audit the signed contracts, and then you cannot optimize on it. Okay. So, firstly, you need to make sure that 93% number gets corrected to ensure there's a contract. And everybody says procurement, 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 but I think this is not just a procurement problem. This also goes back to compliance and regulatory. So it means there's no contract, no data processing. Your company data is flowing to these tools regardless.
Yeah, Right. And if I move on to aggregators, because I am being told that we have 6 minutes left and we still have quite a few insights to give. So I will speed through this a little bit because I think IO's inputs are super interesting. But to go back to that aggregator number, again, this is a platform that's going to bring together multiple AI models. And so about half, or a bit more than half of the organizations in our data set are using aggregators. But there's a real logic to using an aggregator, which means, bringing together one platform, one bill to pay, one platform to monitor, one contract. But the reality is not what we're seeing. So 95% of those, and we're taking Dust as an example here because it's widely used across our customer database, but it is 95% of those using Dust also pay for OpenAI. 88% are paying for Dust and Anthropic, and then 86% are paying for all three. So really, in terms of good students in the room, we're only at about 40% who have actually replaced a direct model contract with an aggregator. So Io, you want to tell me a little bit about what stands out here for you?
Yeah, I think 4%. I have to give it to the 4%. I think they're great. I think they should keep doing what they're doing. But then my hope is that after this webinar, people move from the whatever percent they are into that 4% because that's best practice. And I would like to leave with the line that before you renew your aggregator, you need to ask yourself the question: is the aggregator replacing the current LLM model that I have? If the answer is yes, you know what to do. If it's no, you also know what to do.
Yeah, and I think that over time, people will be understanding better their usages, and it goes back to that question of monitoring and really understanding the value that you're seeing from AI. This is I guess, the part that's going to be most impactful today in 2026 for everyone is those AI-enabled tools. So these are traditional SaaS products, so your CRMs, your project management tools, etc., that have added AI features to their existing core offering. So basically every SaaS tool. It's fundamentally different from the other two types of tools that we saw because you generally already have a relationship with them. You have an existing contract, you have an established usage, you know your use cases. And what's interesting too is you probably have no vendor evaluation to trigger when AI features are added and when AI costs arrive. And so they might be either a new line on your contract or an invisible line on your contract. And I think two figures really show why this is important to review your bill is that one, we've got low activation, and we know actually that low activation will become part of your bill. So most of our customers use Salesforce, HubSpot, Zendesk, et cetera. They're very well widely adopted, but we're seeing very little adoption of the AI features on the contract. And it's not the low adoption that's interesting, it's that the bill hasn't arrived yet, right? Because vendors are moving AI from an optional add-on to a standard part of the plan. So this means that you will be paying for it at renewal if you are not adding a review period for these features before renewal. And this is really important because that second number that you're seeing up on your screen, the 15 to 20%, is what we're seeing in terms of the price difference that you're paying for AI features. So if you are paying for them outside of renewal, you're going to be paying 15 to 20% more. So it's really important that you evaluate what features you need when renewal comes up and that also you are tracking your renewals. Io, do you have anything to add to this in terms of AI-enabled SaaS costs?
Uh, well, I think you said it all, if you ask me. But then it's interesting to add Notion into the piece. Okay, so again, tracking is not just enough. If you're a Notion user, Notion is moving to a new base pricing. They are tying this as a bundle, so you don't have a choice. You cannot opt out. However, there are some strategies we are deploying right now to see how we're going to get that negotiated. What Notion is doing is adding about between 25% to 45% to your current bill, and because you cannot disable the AI feature. And that tells me again that you have to keep an eye on this spend. If not, you'll probably be paying for it with a with a bigger penalty.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we've had the AI tax and now we've got the AI token tax. And it's interesting to bring it back to that question of perceived value versus passing on costs. So vendors can now add on a lot of extra features, more value for their customers, and they can do it faster. And so, we are sitting here complaining about the added cost, but it's not to say that some of it isn't worth it. However, we are seeing more cost-based pricing, I would say, than value-based pricing. And that's because vendors are now passing their AI infrastructure costs, so their per token charges that they are paying to OpenAI, Anthropic, et cetera, and other model providers directly to customers. And so that's what we've named the token tax. And, they're bundling this invisibly into annual plans and justifying it with language, again, probably coming from product marketing, of innovation and enhanced value. So we're seeing a lot of price increases that are going anywhere from 8 to 25%. And, you're going to tell me, okay, Liz, but the cost of AI is getting cheaper and we've seen token prices going down. And I said this to Io, and he was like, actually, that's not what we're seeing. Because yes, certain token prices are going down, and also we're seeing such varied price. So it can go from 3 cents all the way to 150, $1, 150 per million tokens. But the difference here is that, yes, the price per token is getting cheaper, but some models are getting more expensive. So companies are not seeing the decrease in SaaS pricing because lower prices per token and higher model prices are actually driving higher higher consumption volumes. So vendor infrastructure costs are growing, they're not shrinking, and that upward pressure is what is getting passed through to consumers. I don't know if you have a really good example of that, Io, that you can share with us.
Yes, especially I think again, what we're seeing in the industry is you mentioned product marketing. I think product marketing is doing a fantastic job. What I'm seeing more in the bills as AI token tax is more called innovation, and that's why you need to dig more into what the bill says, understand each line item, query when you see a very vague word in your AI order forms. Real life example, a password manager that I negotiated recently, they did increase their pricing about 22%, but then they argued again from their side to say it is purely based on innovation, all about innovation. And then we dug in and we found out it was more on AI tax.
Yeah. And if we have a couple of examples of price increases we've seen, Io, over the past year.
Yes, we do. I think what's it called? Again, as you can see here, we have from Adobe, we have Slack. There's the V3 Slack. There's Microsoft bundling Copilot in there. Google Workspace is doing something interesting here. The Gemini feature is now getting bundled when you renew. It means if you get to bundle Google Gemini with your Google Workspace licenses, you tend to pay lesser, but then it affects the overall cost that you're paying for those licenses. All of this you've put as examples on the slides is just a little into a snapshot of the reality we're seeing in the market.
Yep. And another way to look at it also in terms of invisible bill is that, as we said, lots of SaaS solutions are shipping lots of new AI features because it's easier to do, but then we're actually ending up with a lot more overlap happening. And so if you want to check the overlap, because this is what we've seen in the data, there are some places that you can be looking straight away. There's some stats up here, engineering tools. So 100% of Cursor or orgs using Cursor, also using GitHub Copilots. 38%, and this I find crazy, are paying for 2 CRMs. So they are using both Salesforce and HubSpot. And we know that both have AI features. Whether or not you're using tier CRMs, that is your problem. But they might be releasing features that are very similar, and you don't want to be paying twice for those. Writing tools, 77% of Notion orgs are also using Google and Microsoft for writing, not even including the fact that they're probably paying for Claude and ChatGPT as well. And these are going to have AI writing, translation, meeting notes, etc. So you're going to have a lot of AI features that overlap and that are going to be in your bill. Same with project management. So we're seeing a lot of overlap between Monday, Asana, and Jira. And that overlap can be very justified. Again, what we're saying is really make sure that you're tracking your usage and that you're looking closely of whether or not it is justified. What about you, Io? Are there some numbers here that are surprising for you?
Yes, not I will not say surprising, but from my parts here, the engineering teams, the 100% usage is fair. It is real. Again, as you know, engineering teams are the engine brains behind products, so they tend to like technology and move to different, what's it called? Test all AI models. Again, maybe they're the culprits of having on license or uncontracted AI spend. But the question has to be, are you going to create a funnel here where you test all of these AI tools, you settle on the right ones, and then you stick to those right ones, at least so you can have a view on the spend? Or is there like a world where you tell engineering that, okay, justify the ROI on these tools, and then we can take it from there?
Perfect. And so we are near the end of our webinar. So far, we're only 5 minutes over. But can you tell me, Io, how do we decide what's worth keeping and what's earning its place? Um, what are the what's the framework that I should be thinking of around this topic?
Yes, thank you. I think this is like the right slide to just follow the previous one, especially because we spoke about our engineering team here. So the first question has to be, if you ask me in simple terms, nothing complicated, no big lingua here. First question is anyone actually using it? Okay. I have a typical example from one of my experiences with CEO of a Fortune 500, CFO of a Fortune 500 company, where Copilot was the issue there. They did subscribe for Copilot. Nobody used it. They canceled Copilot. Everybody raised their voices, and then they ordered for Copilot, and still nobody used it. So the question has to be, is anybody using it? Who is actually using this tool? Salesforce themselves did mention as well that from their side, not just speaking about Microsoft here, on Salesforce side, they did mention that the adoption and the usage of their AI as well is pretty on the low side. Okay. The next question has to be, are you already paying for this tool elsewhere? It goes back to your point on the aggregator versus having an LLM model. Again, if you have an aggregator, then you're paying for a separate LLM model. Are you making the right decision here? That's something that has to be considered. So you have to always check, are you paying for these tools elsewhere? And the final one, which is I think the key one at the bottom of all of the conversation here, is what is the ROI on this usage? So exactly how do you measure it? What actually does this do to us? Does this increase for engineering teams? Does it increase speed to market? Does it give us opportunity to create sprints faster, deliver features faster to our clients? How do you measure those features? How do you measure the investment in this AI and the investment for keeping that AI and the return on it?
Perfect.
Now, the point has to be, after you measure all of this, you have to go into the summary of, okay, if number one, if you ask me, I would say on my side, if it's making sense, we need to keep it. Okay. If it's making sense, like if it's bringing value back to us, we need to keep it. If we want to keep it, next thing we need to do is we need to renegotiate. So how do we get a good deal on this stuff, especially for the uncontracted spend here? How do you get a view on it, and how do you keep it? And finally, when you make that decision on keeping the right tools or not keeping the right tools, you have to decide on which of them you have to drop. Okay. uh, yeah.
Sorry, I'm having some technical issues where I think my computer is going to restart. So Kata, I'm gonna let you share your screen if you don't mind. And I'm still here to talk for a little bit until my computer restarts. Perfect, but I'll let you continue on the topic.
Yes, and now the question is, who makes those decisions I just discussed above here? We think firstly you need to get ownership of AI. So if you go to the next slide where we had the CFO and the CTO, again, that's a slide about ownership and governance. Okay, so who makes these decisions I just discussed here? The first point is we have broken it down to say, okay, for the hello, can you hear me? Okay, yes, exactly. So for the AI tax and the shadow AI, we think as of now, as of today, that should sit within the remit of the CIO. He should be the one in charge. He should be the one owning it and monitoring it. On the AI token tax, this is something that has to be monitored for between the CTO and the CIO, because this is where we think there have to be some caps on usage. It has to be caps on the token usage, caps on what tools are going to be used, canceling and banning of credit cards for most of these purchases. Okay, and then on the AI metering, which is the one we spoke about in details here, where the feature is going to, this has to be monitored directly on the CFO's desk. So the CFO has to take ownership of that and manage it directly and govern it directly. And finally, for the feature overlap, again, from my experience, nobody likes to cut their features. Everybody, if you say, do you want to cut this? Nobody wants to cut it. So somebody has to own that decision of cutting that tool. Again, because this tool is what's it called? We think because of the criticality of this, it has to sit between the CFO and the CTO. Is their discussion, their strategy on what tool to keep and what tool to cost. So if you ask me, one key takeaway that I hope everyone learns from today's lesson is, for starters, you simply cannot govern something you cannot see. So visibility comes first, governance comes second, and finally, optimization comes third. And optimization is where I think we all join the call for today on how to get a handle on our spend. Yes, thank you so much for that slide. So I think we're on the last slide now, which I think we're 10 minutes over time. So apologies to everybody in the audience.
Yeah, I think I'm back. Am I back? So I just wanted to, one, thank Io for the insights. And I hope that some of that is applicable. I know what Io said at the beginning, where some of it looks easier than it is, but it's all about baby steps, and finding, what is it that you do now? What is it that you do before renewal? And what is it that you put into your plan for next year? I really, invite you to have a look at some of our ebooks that have been released recently that talk about SaaS spend across Europe. And we will be releasing in September one that's on AI specifically, but you guys will get an advanced copy as soon as it's ready. So you'll have some summer reading. I don't know, we are over time. Again, I apologize. We do normally have a Q&A part to this, but I'm not sure yet because all of my windows closed as to if there are any questions from the audience at this time. I know that we are over, so perhaps there aren't any, but if not, Io, I think as we were building this, there were a couple questions that came up, or maybe you can, remind us. So if, procurement doesn't already have visibility into shadow AI spend, what's the fastest way to get the baseline number for the board, without doing a 6-month audit process?
Yes, thank you so
Easy
much,
question.
Elise, for that question. Again, I think that question goes back to the slide where we spoke about having a handle and auditing your licenses, auditing your AI usage. Again, I would say on that slide, what we try to do here is something that can be done by anyone, especially procurement and finance on their own. We need to start from where the money is actually going. So it means start with expenses and your credit cards. So review those credit cards. Again, there are AI tools that can help you crunch this quickly to see what tools you're buying, to see what AI tools you're paying for, and to see exactly where your money is going. Okay. Again, pull in your IT manager, your CTO, whoever manages the SSO on your side, to check on these logins to know what tools are actually being used in your within your IT ecosystem. Again, I would say don't forget to search for products, and then you can search for vendors, because from our research, products actually brought in more clarity on the AI tools that are being used over the vendors. Okay, and finally, I have to say this. I can't say this enough. Every contract signed from Q4 last year until date, those are the contracts I'll start with. I'll quickly have a read of those contracts to see exactly where these bills are hiding, if I could say that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Io, for your insights. Paris time, it's lunchtime. We're already 15 minutes over. So I think we will leave it there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can hit up Io or I on LinkedIn, or contact Najar at any point, and we're happy to discuss this topic because we've already talked about it 15 minutes more than we should have. So thank you everyone for joining us, and yeah, we hope that you found it interesting.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.